Well, welcome, friends, to the very first Kitchen Table Wisdom with Nancy B. Berggren. I'm an author, an actor, a facilitator, a spiritual life coach, and a lover of life. And I'm so excited because I've had this kind of bug in my mind to do a Kitchen Table Wisdom interview group. And today's the very first kickoff. And I'm so excited. I feel like I should have a spatula in my hand, but maybe next time. But what I'm so excited about, folks, is that today I get to interview my first guest, which is Judith Cohen, one of the funniest ladies and most profound women I've ever met. So I'm going to read you a little bit. Hang in there for just a mo. Judith Cohen is a master certified coach and has been a member of CTI faculty for almost 30 years. She's also a CTI group facilitator at the Stanford University Graduate School of Business. I'm so impressed. And for 3 years, she was the author of CTI's only advice column for coaches called Ask Judith. So right now, why don't we just ask Judith? Welcome, Judith Cohen, to Kitchen Table Wisdom.
Thank you, Nancy, for having me and for asking me to be the very first one. It's my first time being the first. So
your first time being the first. I feel like we need a drum roll. We need a drum roll, like canned drum roll. Awesome. Oh, my friend, you're the story lady. So, and I know you're all about story. So tell me, what's your story?
I have many stories to tell, just as you and everybody else. And the real interesting part of story is noticing which story you're choosing to use.
Okay.
Because we can spin a story in any way you want. So, for example, right now, I'm the first interview that you've done. And my story is, this is great. But I could spin another story about, well, it's the first time, and what if we blow it? But that's a story that we can make up. Or another story is, I wonder what I'm going to learn from this experience. Or it turns out at the end of our meeting today, we're both so thrilled about how well it went. And we go, we know more about stories and interviewing than we ever knew possible. So already we have different stories on the same exact circumstance.
Right.
Now, I also want to say I have my experience of the story, and I could tell my story of what's happening right now. And if you went into another room and somebody interviewed you, I bet your story would be different. The facts would be the same, but your interpretation is your interpretation. And that's the key, your interpretation. When you can take the facts and interpret them in ways that work for you and others, success rains down on everybody.
I love it. Success rains down. I'm ready to have success rain down. So lay it on me, Judith. Lay it on me. What's going on with you right now, girl?
So what's going on with me right now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, and you know the truth of this because you, with your wonderful healing ability, have offered me 2 healings for my soon to be not current situation, thanks to you. And so I've been actually pretty sick for the last few months and not doing too much. And so I made up a whole story about how awful it is, and it's never going to get better, and I'm old, and I can't think, and I'm useless. Not a good interpretation of my circumstances. And then I have to say, in all honesty, Nancy came and did a healing on me with her powerful certainty and connection to God. And the energy just went right through me. And all of a sudden, all of those stories dropped away. And I got back in touch with what's true, which is I'm present, I'm curious, I am creative, and I am a vessel that the universe is supposed to work through. So I better get with the program and stop feeling sorry for myself.
I love that, Judith. Thank you. And that gives us, a way lately the word I've heard is pivot.
Yes.
That's the new buzzword, pivot. So when you're in the soup and you're going, oh, poor me, and la 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 la, then you have the opportunity. That's like a gift to me. When something happened to me like that a couple months ago, I don't always remember, Judith, but that time I started to go to that place and I felt my body. I can feel it start to tighten up. And I went, no, wait a minute, this is a gift. This is an opportunity for me to practice what I know, you know? And
I
so I
love
pivoted. So that's what you just did with your story.
Yes, and I love what you're saying because, sometimes it takes somebody outside of us to help us pivot, but if we have the right questions to ask ourselves, we can pivot internally of our own accord. So one of the questions that I try to remember to ask when I'm at the bottom is, how am I going to be happy about this X amount of time in the future?
Oh,
Usually my first response to myself is, I'm never going to be happy about that. What's your problem? But after I let go of that, I go, well, you know, I actually learned how to do some brain rewiring because part of what was going on is I wasn't able to think clearly. And in the brain rewiring class, I thought this would be great for my clients. I can use this. I'm almost glad that I got really sick because
oh
I
boy.
never would have come up with this training otherwise.
No, I hear you. And that's finding the pony, the little boy
Right.
that's finding the pony in the big pile of manure and going, there's gotta be a pony in there somewhere.
Yes. And as our beloved coach always says, things happen to you, for you, and through you.
Yes, always.
And, we have to start with the truth. Things are happening to you. So you get to be honest in your reactions. So when I was in a lot of pain and I wasn't able to think clearly, I didn't walk around and tell everybody, this is really great. I'm so glad this is happening to me. I was upset, I was sad, I was crying, and I was present to my real experience. And thankfully, nobody said, well, get over it. People accepted me where I was and let me have my experience. So it was happening to me. And then I moved to making it happen for me. Because the next question I asked when I felt a little better was, what can I learn from this experience? And
See,
it,
that's why you're a wise woman.
well, I'm a wise woman because I know nothing and I'm willing to ask. If I don't ask, I'm not wise because everything has the possibility of teaching us something.
Yes, it does.
Even if I don't want to learn what it has to teach me.
That's true too.
So one of the big things I have had to learn, and it's a lesson I keep having to learn, is I have to learn how to ask for help and accept help that's offered to me. So it was a big deal when you offered to give me a healing, and I said yes, because I was practicing. This is what I need to learn. Because
Well, you're so receptive, and thank you for honoring me and allowing me to speak a word, knowing your power and your perfection, and just naming that and calling it forth. And you went, wow, I can feel that even days later. I can still feel it.
I know
The
I was
the
such a,
power, the power of the word spoken through you when you're connected to source energy is source energy.
and that's the thing about stories. Stories are source energy. I'm so glad you said that. I just realized that right now. Because stories, when we're speaking, especially, we're speaking the breath of God. You know, this is the story is creative. It's coming through you and our interpretation, but it's a creation. So, what do you want to create? This is the world that we're creating.
Oh, that's so good. Your breath, you're using the breath to speak, And so that's the breath of God, the breath of the universe, the breath of source energy is pouring through you to create this brand new story. And the thing is, Judith, that for me, and the whole purpose of doing this kind of thing is that someone somewhere across the planet who's going through an experience maybe different or similar or whatever, or feeling that way, regardless of the experience, gets to see someone who's been there in the pits and is willing to say it was the pits and it was horrible and I cried and I moaned and I groaned and I let myself have that experience. But
Yes.
then I figured out how to take that same energy and turn it into a positive in some way.
Right.
And you did that. You made
Even
it
if
made it
it's
a
only
learning.
for me in that moment. So, if you look at to you, for you, through you, step 2 is for you. So you have to be selfish and use it for you. So you can have that experience only when you fully experienced it being for you,
Mhm.
that I think it naturally flows into through you. Because if you're like me, I can't shut up about, wow, this is what I learned and this is what happened to me. And, most people don't know me on this call, but I've had 3 life defying or death defying, I shouldn't say, it felt like life defying in the moment, but 3 death defying experiences where I came very close to dying. And once was a violent crime, once was, well, twice was cancer, and then I lost my hearing. And that was a death in its own way. And each time I managed to have it happen to me, for me, and now it's through me because when I share my story, people get something every time I tell the stories.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Because even if they're terrible stories, they're still useful. And I always say, never let a good tragedy go to waste. Make it work for you.
So you have a saying about all that stuff that went on.
Yeah.
That's very funny to me. So what does that say?
So my job is to help people turn shit into fertilizer, because when you think about having a garden, shit is a really important commodity because
Yes, it is.
it fertilizes. It
Yes.
helps plants and the garden grow and look beautiful. Without fertilizer, nothing's going to happen. So use that shit, make it work for you.
Got it. Got it. And we all have plenty of that in our life. In fact, you don't have to go very far outside your front door to find a whole lot to be upset about if you choose to tell that story, if you choose to live that story. We can all go there. It's just a choice.
Yes, so I'll tell you a quick story. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, it was not a happy day for me.
Oh,
I'm a medical miracle. In 1998, I was diagnosed with ovarian and endometrial cancers. And as of today, probably about 95% of the women I was diagnosed that year with are dead. And I've never had a recurrence and I'm healthy. Hopefully stay that way. And so when the day I got the diagnosis, I was not jumping up and down with joy. But several years later, I started looking back at my experience and I realized that cancer was the best gift that I ever got. But it was the worst wrapping paper and box that I had ever received. But when I finally, made it through the wrapping and opened the box, almost everything I had prayed for, I got through cancer.
that's amazing.
It is. It was totally unbelievable to me, including doing something I never thought of doing. You mentioned that I have a sense of humor, and I was asked to perform at the American Cancer Society for their Ovarian Cancer Month presentation, and they introduced me as a comedian. And I said, I've been called many things in my life, but never a comedian. but I started doing stand-up based on cancer. I never would have done that.
And I today, when I was thinking about interviewing you today, I thought, I tell Judith she's a stand-up comedian. You
Well, they thought I was when I gave a medical rounds talk at the hospital because I was there so frequently. And they said, please talk about your experience. And after it was all over with, the woman who had me speak said, so where do you perform? I go, what are you talking about? I don't perform. She goes, well, you must. I'm submitting your name to the Cancer Society. So you would do stand up. And I'm like, so I came up with my opening line, and that is, cancer is a gift from God. There's only one problem. There's no customer service department to return it to.
see,
And then I just riffed. I have no idea what I said after that, but
that's fabulous. No customer service. You can't return it to Amazon.
yeah.
No return label. Got it. No, it was yours. And you said that you got everything during that period. When you look back on it, you got everything that you asked for. Like, can you tell us? Because I know there are people out there who might be going through a similar experience now. And if you could tell us
Yes.
a little bit more about that.
Yes. So in those days, so we're talking 30 years ago now, I didn't feel particularly good about myself. And I didn't feel particularly lovable. And people were fighting over taking care of me, not like, oh, I have to take care of her. It was like, I didn't get to take care of her yet. Why can't I do it? And I'm like, what is your problem? Me, you know. But I realized how lovable I was. And of course, the most important thing is I don't think anybody is comfortable with death, but it was very possible that I would die. I'm very unusual to have survived. So I got very friendly with death and fear. And in fact, I always tell the story. I used to pray for courage, and all I ever got was fear. And one day I was really angry, and I go, I might as well pray for fear. Maybe I'll get courage. And in the back of my mind, I heard this voice say, good idea. And I'm like, I don't want to pray for fear. But I did. And shockingly enough, I got courage because I realized fear and courage are fraternal friends, or twins rather. And when fear knocks on the door, it always knocks first, but courage is right behind. So you have
Oh,
to let fear in the door.
okay. Gotta let fear in the door in order to find the courage that
Right?
is
Because
behind.
courage always comes, they travel together.
Sure.
But
So as long as you're fighting,
courage never knocks first.
okay. So you have to let the fear in and allow yourself to experience it fully. That's what you're saying. Is that correct?
Exactly. You embrace it. And it's not something any of us want to do.
No, no,
But
no, 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 no.
I was terrified of dying, and I came close to death several times. And at one point I was on the operating table, and thank God I was out. I didn't know how close I had come. And maybe 2 months later, my doctor said, I'm so glad you made it through the surgery. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, we almost lost you. I go, well, I'm still here to bother you.
You have such an indomitable spirit.
I guess.
You know, you do. And it's like one slap after another, after another, after another. And you keep bouncing back. And so that, you know, there's an inner strength, or there's something that you found inside yourself that allows you to face it, experience it fully, but then take it somewhere else and make, or pivot and make it into a different story.
You know, I love that you're saying that, Nancy, because the truth of the matter for me is when it's piddly little stuff, I'm a coward. I bitch and moan and I complain. But if it's death, I'm like, I'm up for it. We're going to, figure this out. And I think it's my curiosity. It's like I can't bear to let it go. I have to figure out what's at the bottom of everything. But if it's, I don't know what I'm not afraid of anything right now. But let's say I was afraid to make a phone call. I'd be like, no, I can't make the phone call. But if you tell me I'm dying, I'm like, I'm right there.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, I want you in my corner. I want you to be my wingman. I definitely want you to be my wingman if I, in those kinds of circumstances.
Well, and you too. And here's what so impresses me about you, Nancy. You have this certainty. Nothing shakes your certainty. And maybe in my own way, when I'm up against it with death, I am absolutely certain that there's something to get from this, and I will not let it go until I figure it out.
See, that's awesome. Yeah, when I was going through my stuff in 2020, I finally came to the realization. I sat down and I said, okay, I got to figure this out, or this damn thing's going to kill me.
Yeah.
Then you start getting real serious and looking at yourself past all the bullshit, past all the excuses, past all the whining and all the why me and all that stuff that we all go through. Everybody goes through that. Everybody goes through that. To get to courage, to get to faith, to get to hope, to get to a possibility of something greater that's beyond this, that this was brought you to in order for you to experience something bigger than you would have ever found before. I would never have had to go through that and get to where I am today if I hadn't been through that experience, which is exactly what you've been talking about.
Right, it's the gift that you just said something about the pivot that I really want to highlight, because when you said, why me? And you said it in kind of that whiny voice. What if we change that voice and make it a credible question? Why you? What if you took that question seriously? So why do you think you were given that set of a circumstance?
I needed to go through it in order to find that there's another way to live in a body that is 90 plus years old. I couldn't do it in a plus, a squared personality that I was doing it anymore. I needed to find a more gentle way to love my body and allow it to do what it knows how to do perfectly, but not with that energy of that push and that obsession of being right, and all that nonsense had to go away. And I didn't give it up easily. No.
No, but see, the question that you asked in that whiny tone of voice is your key to your brilliance. You
Yeah.
know, half the problem, and I learned this when I lost my hearing, we never listen to ourselves. We are totally deaf to our most powerful voices, you know. So when I said, well, all I ever get is fear when I pray for courage, maybe I should pray for fear. And the voice went, that's a good idea. And I'm like, no, it isn't. But that was a moment of listening to myself
Yes.
and taking myself seriously. So, what do you imagine happens when you listen to yourself and take yourself seriously? What changes?
I'm not sure. Why don't you tell me?
So we gain confidence in ourselves. We gain trust in ourselves
Okay.
because we have brilliance that we totally don't pay attention to.
Mhm.
So when
I
you
agree.
listen to yourself, the lesson became clear.
Yes, it did.
And I was just talking with somebody the other day who was suffering a major case of imposter syndrome, and fortunately one of her colleagues talked to her, and she gave a brilliant presentation and they loved her. And when she told me the story, I said, the imposter is this perverse way of keeping us safe. It doesn't let us go to unknown places because it's afraid you can fail. Who knows what's going to happen? But the more you listen to yourself and not to the fake stuff, the more powerful you get and the more trustworthy you become. So when my imposter syndrome shows up right now, it's actually not right now, I'm feeling good. It could have come a few years ago, like, oh my God, I'm talking on Zoom. I don't know what to do. But I'm like, oh, this means I've jumped to a new level of growth. Thank you for showing up. You know, it's that ability to shift things, to pivot, to turn things upside down. And I will say to have a sense of humor, because cancer is the most surreal, hysterically funny illness you can come up with. You know, I used to come to chemo and I would say, I'm here to be poisoned so I can live. And my oncologist said, could you please not say that in the waiting room? And I said, do you think people don't know you're poisoning us? But it's the paradox. That's what had me live.
That's true. Absolutely. And it's your very unique style of humor that takes the shit and turns it into fertilizer.
I can't help myself.
That adds to your mystique and your brilliance, to your wisdom, and all the people that you coach. I know you coach a lot of people, and you coach coaches. Is that right?
I train coaches, I coach coaches, and I coach anybody who has a story that they're willing to change.
Okay, that they're willing.
We all have stories.
We do, absolutely. Well, you said something about Wonder Woman when we talked a little bit ago. What was that story? I don't remember it.
Thank you for asking. So it took me about 9 years to totally lose my hearing due to the chemotherapy that I had.
Oh.
So I have what's known as neuropathy, which means your nerves get affected from the chemo, the toxins in the chemo. And so
Okay.
some people can't feel anything in their fingers or feet, but in my case, it went to my ears and my cochlea. All the little hairs in my cochlea died over a period of 9 years, which meant that I was deaf. But because of my work, I have to listen to people, and I didn't want anybody to know that I couldn't hear. So I lip read, I faked things, I pretended I knew what I was talking about, and luckily I pretended well. But I would walk around and think, I wonder what she just said. I wonder what that means. I wonder who's talking. And then I said, oh, I must be Wonder Woman.
See, that's taking the shit and creating fertilizer.
Right.
It's brilliant.
And I am one, well, actually I'm the bionic woman because I have, technology in my head because of the cochlear implants. So I'm a bionic woman.
That's brilliant.
No longer one.
So exciting.
I've gone from Wonder Woman to the bionic woman.
I love it. I love it. Do you have a free offer for our guest today?
Yes, I do, because just in case you have a story that you want to reframe or tell in a different way or have it happen to you, for you, and through you, I have a handout that I would love to send you. It's free. So you can write me at Judith, Judith, at coachjudithcohen.com and send me your email address, and I will make sure it arrives in your email box.
Okay. So that's Judith at JudithCohen.
Cohen, COHEN.com. CoachJudithCohen.com.
Okay. I got it. And what do we get when we do that? Because I want to do that and get your free handout. What is it about?
It's a 6-point method for reframing any story you have. And I'll give you a hint. The first step in reframing is to tell the truth. So if you are rolling in shit, you get to say, I'm covered in shit. You don't pretend and go, oh, this is really wonderful. I have cancer. I'm so thrilled. No, you get to say, I'm scared to death. This is awful. Why is this happening to me, etc. But that's the first step. In any reframe, but I'll leave you to figure out what the other ones are.
I can't wait to get it and get that other step. So, Judith, I can't tell you how thrilled I am and grateful that you agreed to come on our very first kitchen table wisdom and bring all of your wisdom, all of your wise words and your silly funniness. I absolutely adore your sense of humor, and you have to do stand-up comedy. You just have to do it.
Well, hopefully I did a little sit-down comedy today. But
Okay, you did a little.
Nancy, thank you so much for having me. You know, we have this mutual admiration club
You
because
do.
you changed my life. So I just want to share a quick story. Before I met Nancy, I thought I was old, and I was telling everybody how old I was, and I probably didn't have that many more years to work. And just for information, I just turned 74 a few days ago. And so I thought I was old, but so I was 72 when I met her. And then she introduces herself and says she's 90. And I'm like, what? And I couldn't tell my story anymore. That was the fastest reframe I ever did because you are so alive and vibrant and certain and filled with spirit. I just had to shut up. So thank you. And thank you for having me today.
That's wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and watch for the next episode of Kitchen Table Wisdom. And who will our next guest be? I have no idea, but it will be fun. See you then. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.